Welcome back to Inspired Infrastructure. In this episode, I'm heading to Ontario, Canada, where there's been recent news impacting the future of complete streets in the province. The Ontario government recently introduced the Reducing Gridlock Saving You Time Act, a bill that, if passed, would require cities to get provincial approval for new bike lanes and could lead to the removal of existing bike lanes. As someone who's dedicated nearly his entire career to complete streets planning and design, this news is shocking and pretty much opposite everything I've learned over the last 15 years. The rationale for the bill is to reduce congestion and make life easier for drivers. But it's been proven time and time again that adding lanes for cars does not solve congestion. In fact, it often makes it worse, or you get back to where you started, and that's based on induced demand. If you add more capacity for cars, you will encourage people to drive, which leads to more cars on the road, and eventually you're back to the same gridlock you had to begin with. All the while, you're ignoring everyone else who would use that roadway. These are people who often go underserved with respect to transportation infrastructure, and generally are more vulnerable on that roadway outside of a moving vehicle. These are people who choose to walk or bike. These are children, people who've aged out of driving, people with disabilities, people who can't afford a vehicle, and there's many more. Forcing a municipality to get permission from the province before installing a complete street in their community may effectively turn into a ban on new bike lanes. It's putting the burden of proof on those cities to show sufficient data to justify installing them. And sometimes in my career, that burden was insurmountable. It was similar to times where I couldn't install a new pedestrian safety improvement at a new crosswalk because no one had died there yet. Or I couldn't add a new protected bikeway because no one was biking there yet. It was kind of like saying this new house doesn't need a roof until it rains. Fortunately, there's been some pushback against this proposed legislation. The Association of Municipalities of Ontario has voiced that the cities know what's best for their own infrastructure and shouldn't need provincial permission to build or maintain bike lanes. One of these cities is Hamilton, Ontario, which earlier this year introduced the Accelerated Active Transportation Plan, aiming to expedite the implementation of new and improved biking facilities throughout their city. Taking a look at the bikeways layer on Google Maps, I can see the beginnings of a bike network, but there's still a lot left to accomplish. I want to focus on Wilson Street near the city center. It's dominated by vehicles. There are 4 eastbound-only vehicular lanes with curb-attached sidewalks, and this street would be a nightmare to travel along on a bike. It has essentially been designed for cars, not for people. But just 200 meters to the north, I found Cannon Street, which until about 10 years ago was the westbound one-way pair to Wilson. But in 2014, it was transformed from a 4-lane vehicular thoroughfare into a street with just 2 lanes for cars and a protected 2-way bikeway. This multimodal redesign has made a significant positive impact on safety and mobility for cyclists and other non-drivers in the area. So using Beyond Typicals, I want to apply the same design approach to Wilson Street. By essentially mirroring the successful redesign of Cannon Street, I can envision a similar improvement that deprioritizes motor vehicles and provides a safe, accessible bikeway, giving Hamilton residents another option to get around the city. Next, I used the photo composite feature in Beyond Typicals to import a Google Street View image along Wilson Street so I could visualize a before and after of this transformation. And I didn't stop there. Thanks to the assistance of one of Hamilton's bike network planning maps, I was able to quickly find other streets in Hamilton that would similarly benefit from new dedicated space for bikeways that would be safe and accessible for people of all ages and abilities. By making these changes, we not only improve safety for people walking and biking, but also contribute to reducing congestion by offering viable alternatives to driving a vehicle. Remember, more bike lanes means more people choosing to bike, which can decrease the number of cars on the roadway. Putting up legislative roadblocks on the municipalities of Ontario will not only affect the safety and well-being of residents who rely on alternative modes of transportation, but it hampers all the progress and hard work these cities have put into improving their accessibility, sustainability, and livability to date. So what can you do to support complete streets in Ontario? There's lots, and instead of listing them all here, check out a link in the video description to a blog post from Jamie Stuckless of Stuckless Consulting. The post has lots of links for voicing your opposition to Bill 212 in support of safer, stronger communities. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Inspired Infrastructure for more about creating cities that move us all forward.